about a month ago, I did something that I thought I would never do in our homeschool. I put together a morning basket for my kids. I tried this before and it didn't work, but there were some things that I saw with my daughter that I decided, okay, now it's time, let's try it. So let me tell you all about why and what happened. Hi guys, Kathleen S here. I'm a homeschool graduate, homeschool mom, learning enthusiast, and a mom to a 1-year-old and a gifted 4-year-old. So, homeschool update time. What has happened in the last month since I've given you guys an update? A lot. We have been doing school in the afternoon during my 1-year-old's nap time for at least a year now. But I've been seeing some things that have just indicated it is time to switch things up. Our routine's no longer serving our kids. I started noticing two things. First, Stephen was no longer giving me good attention in the afternoon. He was doing a lot more rubbing, not wanting to do the things that were a little bit challenging for him, not wanting to do things he just wasn't interested in. So reading he would be totally down for, but anything that required an effort from him, he wasn't willing to make a try at it. So that was one thing. The other thing was my daughter. I began realizing I was not giving any dedicated time to her and to her current developmental needs. I've been letting her do her own independent exploring thing. Reading books when she asked for it, when I remembered inviting her to read books with me, but I have a 4-year-old driving me nuts and going around the house needing attention, and he needs a lot of attention. So my 1-year-old was going by the right wayside, and I decided I did not want that to happen. So we changed things up, and this is what we did. So one of the first things I changed was, as I said before, I added a basket. I had tried this with my son when he was 2 and 3, and it just never took, because the typical things you do in a morning basket are things like finger plays, songs, poetry, and just a bunch of fun picture books. Stephen just never was interested in most of those things. So I set this up with my toddler in mind, choosing things that were very toddler friendly in the beginning. I would choose a book from the Baby Believer series. These are awesome, good toddler board books, introductions to biblical ideas and principles. She loves these, but I was doing this on top of my son's devotional, which came from Sunlight. We're actually still reading this. We're almost done with it. But she also loves listening to this. So we have gotten away from doing the toddler books and have just started doing my son's pre-K Bible story book, which she still enjoys listening to. The other thing I added was a book of poetry. This was specifically with my daughter in mind, with her obsession with animals, but my son did at her age love reading this book as well. We got this used, and it's just a whole bunch of gorgeous photographs from National Geographic of different animals, and then a poet laureate put together the compilation of poems in here. So you have everything from Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Eagle, which is a classic, to some more modern stuff, to some even haikus. So there's a great compilation in here. Thea loves looking at the photos and talking about the animals, and it's great because it's a little bit of rhyming that she's introduced to, and Stephen just still loves the book and the content. I did originally try to choose toddler books. She has this basket here that sits over here by the couch full of toddler style board books. She has not been asking me to read these books as much. She goes to our library basket full of books like this. So we morphed from doing the board books, toddler style, to choosing simpler picture books with actual pages. She loves turning the pages. She loves looking at these, especially if they have animals in them. So I've been choosing these books using booklets printed out from Read Aloud Revival, and just have been using these at the beginning of the month to request books from the library. And some of them are a little bit too long and involved for her, but some of them are not. So of the books that we requested, I pick and choose which ones to read. So this was actually what's in her basket right now, what we read this morning from Morning Time. And then also, as I remember, I go to our big collection of children's books and just put those in there and rotate those through as well. So she has really been enjoying that. She is always down for more books. And when she's just done listening, she gets down and goes off and does her own thing. As I said, one other thing that I'm doing with Thea that Stephen never was interested in is music. I tried doing the whole musical instruments with Stephen when he was her age, when he was 2, and I tried again when he was 3. It just was like mommy showtime. So yeah, I just got rid of it. But Thea has been loving it. I have all my instruments here in this piano bench, and we do a nursery rhyme, and then I've chosen a hymn that I sing with the kids. Thea actually does try to sing with me. She's always insistent that I have a musical instrument. She rotates through what she chooses. Stephen is hit and miss with whether or not he wants to participate, and he never tries to sing. And I don't push it if he's not interested. The last thing I have in here is Frog and Toad. It's a storybook that is a little bit of a stretch for Thea. She knows this book. Like this morning I said, okay, it's time for Frog and Toad, and she says, Frog, Frog, and she's all excited to take the bookmarks out. My daughter is obsessed with bookmarks, and she crinkles them up and everything while she sits and listens. But eventually in this story, this is when she gets down and decides she's done reading for the day. And that is when we move on to my son's books, which is this pile over here. So this morning we did Kublai Khan. We're still in China in our studies. I keep thinking we're going to wrap it up, but there's just a few more things that I want to get in. And then we're doing Sunlight storybook, favorite Uncle Wiggily bedtime stories. And Stephen's practicing his reading while Thea's running around the house being distracting or off doing something else. And then he gets rewarded by me reading a chapter of Boxcar Children to him. I think this works really well for us. Him reading here, and then his reward for a job well done finishing his story is the chapter book that I know he will really love. Okay, next it's time for Chocolate and the Like, the point in the video where I eat some amazing chocolate, brownie brittle today, and ask you to bump that like button and help this video spread to more people. Okay, we're gonna take a little field trip because I wanted to show you what I changed with our table school. That's over here, so let me get myself situated and then we'll talk everything through. Okay, before we get into everything here for table school, I just wanted to reiterate, your child goes at his or her own pace. I have a 4-year-old that's gifted, so what he's doing is going to look completely different from what your child is doing. Do not panic, your child is not behind. You just meet your kid where he or she is at and just go with the next step. Okay, so what we've got here is our table time. I have a 30-minute timer, a visual timer that I put on for my son and my daughter, since she's joining us now, of what we're doing at the table. We've got handwriting for my son, which I get him started on first, while my daughter, who insists on mimicking everything my son does a coloring page. This is what she did this morning with my assistance. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind with toddlers. They'll want to be doing exactly what their older siblings are doing. So just setting them up at the table with their own activities may not work. I had to find things that mirrored what my son was doing so my daughter would be happy. When we move on to math, which is Right Start Math, I usually let her get involved with some of the manipulatives that I have out here. I let her play with this, whatever we're not playing with. If it's not a manipulative that I'm willing for her to play with, then she's got her own thing, which let me go grab. So this is what I call Thea's Math, at least what I have right now. It is from the Timberdoodles Tiny Tot Curriculum Kit. Go check out my review, I'll link that down below if you're interested in more details about this. But she enjoys playing with this when there's a manipulative she can't play with. So this is Thea's Math. I probably will get her another one here when she turns 2, another thing or two that's specifically for her that she can play and call her math. Shape recognition, color recognition, pattern, anything like that. But that's what she plays with while her sibling is doing his math book. And then we move on to all about reading any of the activities or table work. I break this up a little bit differently. I have to make a video to show you how I do that. But we don't do all about reading all in one sitting. We break up things into smaller chunks so it's not as daunting to him. So when we get the letters out for this, I have her playing with magnetic letters down here, or she continues with her art, stickers or something like that. If I can get her staying on this, then she'll stay there. Yes, Stephen? Okay, son's taken care of. Where was I? I think I was talking about what my daughter was doing. So she has artwork that she's working on from this art kit, which is her own. My son has his own art kit here, so they don't fight over that. And then I try to rotate out art supplies in here so she has something fun and new to play with every couple weeks. I do have a fine motor activity that I have in here, toothpicks in a bottle. I give her stickers sometimes at the table. I recently, I think I told you, introduced her to cutting, which she is loving practicing that. She was cutting on her paper here, tearing that up. So those are things that I'm doing at the table to get her engaged. And then inevitably, when I pull out one of Stephen's logic books, coding or his building thinking skills, she wants her own book. So she has a coloring book, which she doesn't really color in, but she wants me to interact with her with this somehow because I'm interacting with Stephen with his. She wants to mimic her older brother. So I get him set up on whatever activity he's doing in his thinking books, and then I redirect my attention to her. And at that point, it's typically when I join in her art activity, her coloring book, give her some time before the timer goes off. And that's usually about 10 to 15 minutes towards the end. Depends on how well Stephen does with paying attention. But math and reading and handwriting, typically about 15 minutes that we're done with everything in. And so I can give her another 10 to 15 minutes of my dedicated time so that she doesn't feel left out and she's included with school. Before I sign off on this, I wanted to show you guys some of the other fun stuff we've been doing with China. So I found these sheets online that I could print off for Chinese calligraphy. So Stephen was having a ton of fun this week with that. Learning how to write 8, and he got his paintbrush out and wrote a bigger version. Writing 5, what else does he have in here? But it looks like he's been having a lot of fun. And today's activity that we did was snowflakes. There's a book that talks about Chinese paper cutting and how 2 friends love to do that for Chinese New Year. So I showed him how to make a snowflake and then went and cooked muffins in the kitchen with my daughter. And Stephen went at it doing this all by himself, and he was very impressed with it. So later we're going to do what the girls did in the book and go hang them out in our tree. Probably won't be freezing them in water like they did, but we'll just hang them from strings and put them on our tree in the front yard. So that is what's going on in our homeschool for the past month. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Drop those down in the comments.